Ariana, do you have host access? Your audio is really laggy.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Okay, so whatchamacallit? I couldn't find the host key.
Oh, there's no host key. I gave you host access.
Oh, okay. Whatchamacallit? So are you gonna be here for the beginning?
No, I'm just gonna leave.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, this is how it's gonna be for all the meetings. I'm just gonna join in and like give people their host thing.
All right.
And
Sorry,
then
I have a yeah. Sorry, what?
I said you could give the co-host to the speakers.
Yeah, of course. Okay. I thought they were gonna join by now.
They'll join exactly at the time. Like, I
Okay.
don't know about the speakers, but I know the students, they'll probably join exactly at 2.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Bye-bye.
Sorry for the noise. Okay.
Hey Ariana, how are you? Hello? Hey Ariana, how are you? Are you there?
So, is my audio all right?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I had to leave work. So I heard voices, but anyway.
Cool.
All right, I'm on co-host.
You made this
So
your co-host, right? Okay, perfect.
yeah,
And then you're renaming yourself as
yeah, FGS. And then Adnan, are you ready to present? If you can hear me.
Can you rejoin?
Yeah.
All right, we can start after like probably like 30 to 40 people come.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make them co-host again. Oh wait. Are you able to unmute now or no?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Awesome. Are you ready to present your screen? Wait, let me
Yeah,
make
I
you
can
co-host again.
Yeah, I can do
Okay.
that.
And then you could probably just leave the title screen on while we wait for more people to join, if that's what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Can all the participants give me a thumbs up if they're able to see the previous Zoom event feedback? And if you have filled it out, give me a thumbs up from the reaction. All right. One person, we have one person thumbs up. Two people thumbs up. How are the rest of the people? Are you able to, you did not receive survey feedback. Is it the survey feedback like right after Zoom, right? Crystal?
Yeah, on the first survey feedback, I did receive it, but the second one, which is like the previous one, the recent one, I did not receive it, and I think it's because I'm not signed in Zoom and only on like software.
Oh yeah, you have to sign into Zoom to do the feedback, and try not to use your school email to sign into Zoom because that might not work.
Could you guys enable the screen share again? Because I had to quit and come back because my I had to do something with my computer. But it says you need to host disabled participant screen sharing. You guys can hear me?
Wait, Ariana, are you still there?
Hey, Julia, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't have
Oh, okay.
host access. Wait, Ariana, are you still there?
No, it looks like she dropped off.
She said she lost connection and disconnected. She's trying to connect again. Yeah, if everyone coming in, you guys can put in the chat, hyping it up. You can put in where you're from, what grade you're in, stuff like that in the chat. And also when you post on your story, we will repost on our Instagram at the end of the day to hype it up. Oh, we have one from Southern Illinois. Which town in Southern Illinois? I am from northwest suburbs of Illinois. Also for the speakers, can you rename yourself with like the organization that you're from, so we know that you're speaking? Okay, Ariana's back. Ariana, do you have host access right now?
No.
You do not have host access.
Jasmine plus Crystal will become host.
What'd you say?
One of the participants became host. I'm gonna message him.
Okay. Jasmine and Crystal.
Yes.
Yeah, I just messaged them.
Okay, can you guys give Ariana host and then Adnan co-host and then remove yourself as host? Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
Can you give Lutz and then Adnan both co-host?
Yeah, they're
Perfect. Amazing.
alright. So while we wait, how's everyone's day going?
Put in the chat if you are
Yes,
not,
please.
if you don't want to talk. How's first day of prepathon?
Oh my goodness, yes. What panels did you guys see?
Hey, it's still not letting me share. I don't know if I have host access yet or not.
Oh, you could have sworn. Okay, let me check. Oh. Yep. Okay, you should be able to share.
Yeah. All right.
Perfect. Can all speakers turn on their camera?
Yeah, I can turn my camera on. Oh man.
All right, and Ariana, you can moderate the chat for questions.
All right, so I see some people are talking about growth mindset, which is extremely important to the college process. I'm glad people are learning a lot.
Okay. All right, can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Are we ready to start?
Yeah, Luz is gonna give a quick intro for us.
Okay.
Well, it's
Really
actually going to
quickly-
be Norma.
Okay.
Oh,
He's
sorry,
our
Norma.
CEO.
Hey everyone, Norma Torres Mendoza. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome. We are very excited to be here with you all. We are How to College for First Gen, and we're really excited to be here and to tell you about our podcast. So just a little bit of background. This podcast started 2 years ago when we were sitting at a coffee shop and we were talking about our experiences as first gens. And I just felt like we were having the same conversation over and over again, right? About imposter syndrome, about what it's like to be the first, about what it's like to bring your family along, what it's like to come from a different socioeconomic level. And so the idea was born that we would record our conversations with our friends on all the different topics. And so we are now at 90 plus episodes. We are celebrating our 2nd year anniversary this August. And so that is a little bit of who we are. We're a 501c3. And if any of you are interested in being in the podcast, we can drop in here the form on our website for you all to be our guest and tell us about your experience. Our focus is primarily on the narrative piece. So our point of view is that many of you can go on and Google how to do FAFSA, right? But you can't learn about the experience and the thought process that people underwent to make the decisions that they did. So that is what we focus on, not necessarily the how to apply to this, how to do that, because I think Google is really good for that. But we primarily focus on why did people make the decisions that they made? How did people make the decisions that they did? So yeah, that's a little bit about who we are. Anything to add, Luz, Anan, or Alejandro?
I think you pretty much captured us nice and briefly.
Yeah.
Sure thing. All right, so next up, I think we are going to do a little bit of intros on some of our hosts. All right,
You want to kick it off, Norma?
Yeah, since I have my mic unmuted. So Norma Torres Mendoza, I'm a director at EY Parthenon, where I work primarily in mergers and acquisitions and entering different markets for our clients. I am a first gen. I am the first one out of 50 cousins to go to college. So my mom has a 3rd grade education. We immigrated to the US when I was 9. Went to Rice undergrad, where I studied political science, Hispanic studies, sociology, then went on and went to Harvard to get my master's in public policy, and also did sort of like a joint degree with my MBA back at Rice. Free time, I love running. I'm training for my 3rd marathon. I believe in mental health, and I think that that is one thing that keeps me sane among all the crazy things that are happening. Yep, that's a little bit about me. All right, Luz.
So hi, everyone. My name is Luz Rocha. Like Norma, I'm also first gen. Both my parents were immigrants, so they also had like an elementary school education. So all of this, college process and everything was super new when I was going through it. And had it not been for, the people at my school, my counselors and mentors, who knows where I'd be. But a little bit about myself. So I also went to Rice. I graduated back in 2014 with a degree in chemical engineering. Decided I didn't want to do chemical engineering as a job. And so when I got my first job out of college, I switched into the environmental field. So I'm an environmental engineer now with a company called GSI Environmental. And then I've been doing that for the past 8 years now. So grown in my career a lot, been able to kind of pick up some managerial responsibilities along the way. Some more than just an engineer, which is pretty exciting.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alejandro Izaguirre. I'm currently a program analyst for diversity, equity, and inclusion and environmental social governance at Infoblox, which is a cybersecurity company based out of California. But before Infoblox, I spent most of my undergraduate career working in nonprofits and governments and working in multiple capacities in the public sector. And I recently decided to make the shift to the private sector about a year ago. So it's been really exciting, kind of leveraging what I've learned in the nonprofit sector and kind of building my career in corporate social responsibility. I'm also like undocumented. I'm a DACA recipient. So my parents and we immigrated to the US when I was about 5 years old, and I've lived in Houston pretty much all of my life.
Hey everyone, I'm Adnan Kareem. I'm currently a commercial manager at Dow Chemical. So I started at Dow right after college. So I went to University of Houston and I did chemical engineering there, graduated in 2017 and also a first gen. So I had to kind of figure my way out through college and, kind of figure out what major I wanted and what I wanted to do. So I started at Dow working in the plants and operations and, enjoyed it quite a bit, did that for about 4.5 years and kind of wanted to do something different, more on the, the business side of things. So I kind of made the switch over to my current job and loving it so far. It's been a crazy career shift, but it's been fulfilling. From the Houston area, so basically, came here when I was really, I was a baby basically, and essentially, raised here. So Southwest Houston area. So yeah, in my free time, I love exploring the city, even though I've probably explored every nook and cranny of it. I love, going to a local gym called F45, just, staying active, watching sports, things like that. Been blessed to be able to travel a little bit with, post college. So try to keep up with that as well.
Thank you so much for your introductions, guys. I would like to say thank you so much for coming again and representing Howson College. So now if you'd want to move into Q&A. And if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. If I see any patterns, I'll let them know. Or you can look at the chat directly, whatever works best for you guys.
Shall we begin with one as some come through? So I know that some of you are engineers and you also do a bit of business. So maybe we can begin with that one. How do you intersect different fields together? And maybe also answer the question of how you were able to select a specific field in engineering.
Sure, I can kind of take that one. I started when I went to U of H, I actually started as an architecture major, so which was completely different than what I ended up doing. And I always thought that you kind of have to have everything figured out when you first, your first day of college, and that's not really true. I switched majors twice. So I went from architecture and then I switched into civil engineering. And then I didn't know that I didn't want to do that. And then I switched into chemical. So I guess to answer the question, the first semester is always, you take a lot of general courses. Most engineering schools make you do that. So I would really encourage you guys to really take the time to talk to folks that are maybe like sophomores, juniors, seniors about what they like about their major, what they don't like, and how that kind of fits in with your personality and what you're looking for out of your career and what to do after school. And don't feel like you're locked into your major, let's say your first semester. You have time to kind of decide and switch and can really pick what you want to do.
One thing I'll add to that, with engineering, a lot of times there's a lot of coursework that goes on, and like you have to take certain classes like in a specific order. So it can be difficult to, for example, switch majors like, you know, at the end of your sophomore year and still be able to like graduate in that same timeline that you were thinking of. So that's something to keep in mind with engineering, that it can add a couple, you know, semesters or something if you're switching kind of late in the game and have to come back and do some of these like intro courses. And actually for me, the way I decided about, you know, choosing chemical engineering is I really liked chemistry in high school, and I figured that would be similar. As I got through it, I realized it was not the case at all. And by the time I was maybe like a junior, senior, I realized I didn't really like chemical engineering. But the other really great thing about engineering is that a lot of times it's a lot of similar skill sets that you learn, no matter if you're, you know, majoring in chemical or mechanical or civil or whatever it is, that by the time you're entering the job market, as long as you have that skill set that you build, become an engineer, it can be, you know, relatively easy to jump ship into like a different career sector. So I think engineering as a whole, because of that skill set that you build throughout college, really opens you up for a wide variety of job opportunities, not just in engineering, but, you know, in consulting or other sorts of things. It's a very open field because of that skill set.
Right, so maybe we can go over to Alejandro to talk a little bit about business. So Alejandro originally comes from the public sector, so would love to hear how you decided to pivot, how and why you decided to pivot to the private sector.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can kind of talk a little bit about my journey about like why I decided to even enter the public sector. So I think whenever I was in high school, and I think this is something that like a lot of like children of immigrants face, who are like first gen, that like pretty much the only career paths like that your parents present you as doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And I think like that I wasn't like planning on doing any of those. I thought like lawyer was probably like the best like option for me. So I did this summer program at a nonprofit called Breakthrough Houston. So I taught ninth graders for a summer, ninth grade literature. And I think that experience kind of solidified that like I wanted to pursue a career in like public service, specifically in education policy, because I saw that a lot of the educational inequities I grew up experiencing were the same ones that my students were experiencing. So I had a variety of internships from the Texas House of Representatives to the mayor of Austin's office, and most recently the U.S. House of Representatives for Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. But I did a final fellowship the first year out after I graduated college, and I think towards the end of it, I felt very jaded. Not only just because the type of work in like nonprofit work and in government and public service is and can be very emotionally exhausting, but I realized that a lot of the impact that I wanted to make in relation to like race equity and like social mobility policy wasn't going to happen, at least early on in my career, particularly because of the way that the Texas House of Representatives and Senate is organized in the sense that it leans much more like partisan to Republican rather than Democrat. And these are individuals who might not necessarily pursue policy that is related to advancing race equity for underrepresented populations. So I thought that the private sector was an opportunity for me to kind of still utilize those skills in partnership building and community building to kind of still maintain my public service goals. And now, like being in this industry for about a year, like I didn't really understand what cybersecurity is or any of these kind of like very like specific like business terms, but it's definitely been a huge like learning experience. And I realized that I can still kind of make like that social impact that I really loved about working in public service within the private sector, whether it's through charitable contributions or partnerships with organizations, or something that my company does is a certification program for Black and Latino students across the US to get them skills to become cybersecurity professionals and get them like the certifications to become solutions architects and kind of work in this industry. So still kind of working towards that like race equity like mindset and goals that I had, just in a different industry.
Sounds good. I can answer this question, and then I know that there's quite a bit of questions about, is this worth it? So for me, business, I'm just going to be very transparent. Ready? I wanted a job where I was making a lot of money, where I was being challenged, where I was helping companies understand where they are and where they need to be in the 21st century to be able to survive and thrive. And so a lot of the way that the companies survive nowadays is through mergers and acquisitions or by entering other markets, right? And so consulting for me allowed me to, one, work with type A personalities all the time. If you know me, I'm a very type A, get things done all the time. And then B, making an impact also like in the business world, but C, also make money and make quite a bit of it. If we're just being very transparent here. Okay, people want to hear about your biggest challenges, either as an engineering major or when you were in college, and how did you overcome this, especially as a first gen?
Yeah, for me, a big challenge was, you know, the high school that I went to was kind of like an inner city high school. So I would say probably didn't prepare me the best for college. You know, it was definitely a learning curve when I got to college on kind of the difficulty of the classes. So that was a big challenge. You know, the engineering is, at least when you get into kind of your intro engineering classes, kind of like in your sophomore year, they're not easy. But how I was able to overcome it, a lot of schools, especially, you know, I went to U of H, but I'm sure it's the same case for UT, Baylor, any school. They have a lot of programs out there that help with supplementing your classes with either workshops or, you know, they have U of H had a first gen program. I'm sure other schools do. And I really went out of my way kind of the second semester of my first year to find those programs to get help and find like a, you know, support system of folks that were like me, but also kind of, you know, sophomores and juniors that could kind of help guide me through the classes and help me figure out what I needed to do to get through them. So I would say kind of look for those kind of programs, especially if you're like me and you came out of a high school where you felt you weren't the best prepared for it. Those really helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with Anand about, you know, in engineering, the hardest thing for me was also the coursework. There's so much of it, and it's, at least at Rice, it was very difficult, and it was something I wasn't used to when I started, you know, doing the engineering classes. But what helped me was having a solid like study group from day one. So we would get together, we would do all of our homeworks together, we would study for tests together, and I don't think there's a way I would have been able to graduate without any of that support. Like, I don't know how other students do it like solo, because there's just so much. And so it's, for us, it was like a divide and conquer. Like somebody would, you know, work on one problem, you know, figure out how to do it and then teach the rest of us. And that's how we went about, you know, completing, you know, problem set after problem set. And it was, you know, late night. So we would be working up till like 2 a.m, like finishing up problem sets. And that was like a daily thing. And so balancing that like well-being with coursework was probably the other challenge that I faced getting through engineering.
You mentioned earlier that support systems really helped. Well, multiple of you mentioned that support systems helped you get through engineering. And then you also mentioned study groups. Do you have any advice for forming study groups, especially from day one for a very rigorous major like engineering?
What I found easiest was to reach out to the people that were going to the professor office hours or the TA help sessions, because obviously people that were there were interested in making sure that they like knew how to do the stuff. So like I reached out to the people that I would meet there and be like, hey, do you want to like join or have a study group together, or like join my study group? And we just kind of like, build, semester after semester. I mean, because it was all the same people that were taking these same classes within the like engineering major. So I would see them all the time, and it was easy to get together and like work on stuff because we had really similar schedules.
Yeah, I
Thank-
definitely agree with Luz. I think there's like office hours is a big one, because if you're going to office hours, then you obviously want to go above and beyond to kind of learn the material. And also lab, like a lot of intro classes have like a lab portion, and that was a good way for me to kind of meet people in a smaller setting, because most of your freshman classes are huge. You have like 300-400 people in the class. So labs helped out quite a bit too, to find like-minded people.
Yeah, so this is not a joke, but like Luz was at the library all the time studying, and it was intense. So then the next question then, well, Alejandro, do you have any tips on how to form those groups?
Yeah, I mean,
And maybe also how to form relationships with your professor, because I think that also matters a lot.
yeah, I mean, I think so. I guess I can start with like the professor one, because I feel like with that, like just visiting them during office hours and kind of like asking any follow-up questions is like the biggest thing. My major was very like writing heavy, and I think I wasn't necessarily used to writing like 10 to 15 to like 20 pages on like a semester like type basis. So like kind of leaning on them for like advice has been like was like the biggest like support system to like maintain those relationships. And I think those relationships were especially important whenever I was asking for like recommendations, especially around the time whenever I was applying to like specific programs that were related to like my career interests, whether it was like an internship or a fellowship or a scholarship or like anything that like that like required like a recommendation. As far as like study groups, I wouldn't necessarily say that for my major, because I study political science, that I really use study groups as often. I think only for like my statistics courses, because I'm not like a very like math like savvy like person, and like in those stats courses I definitely needed some support. But even just like being like leaning on like people who you're like sitting next to and kind of finding like support like within like those like classes has been like the biggest like help.
Okay, somebody asked in here, if you need to be a CPA for the business field, what other certifications should I look out for? So it really does depend on what kind of business you want to go into. And like everything is a business, right? Anything that makes a profit is business. So I just want to caveat with that, right? A CPA is really important, obviously, if you want to become an accountant, right? I think that when people look at like big firms like my firm, EY, Parthenon, and Deloitte, they often think we are auditors and we're not, right? Like they obviously EY is pretty big on auditing, but we also have a consulting arm. So for consulting, there is no CPA required. And for consulting, we are taking interns as young as sophomores. We have a program called Launch, LAUNCH, and you come your sophomore year, and then we have another program for juniors, and then another program for seniors. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to learn about various types of consulting in the world, and a CPA is not required for that. But obviously, if you do want to audit companies and become an accountant, a CPA will be required for that.
There's also other certifications I think that you can leverage like within like just being like an area in an area of business. Like in our company, we constantly talk about how there's not one career path to have like a career in technology. Like you can work in the legal field, you can work in marketing, you can work in HR. Like my department is like housed in HR, and I thought like I could like run away from math the rest of my life, but I can't, because I like manage my department's like $2 million budget, and I manage like the all the data that is related to like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like I like process like POs and like invoices and things like that. Like so, and that's just like on like the back end, like day-to-day like stuff that like I do related to like data and like math. So like using like certifications like Tableau and like Python and R and like SATA, like those are like really like valuable skills that honestly in a lot of senses like tranche like my like undergraduate degree, just because it's like these are skills that like I actually like use like on a day-to-day basis, that a lot of like employers are like looking for. So like having like a CPA, like it really depends on like if you want to like be an accountant, but there's other like sectors of like business where other certifications you could really leverage and be like an attractive candidate, especially as you're applying to like internships and full-time job opportunities.
And one thing I will say is for the consulting world, we love engineers. So by the way, you can have both careers. You can go be an engineer first, and then you can come and consult with us. And the reason why we love engineers is because we love people that are logical and structural, like that have structure to all of their answers. And I think as an engineer, your brain gets trained to do things a certain way and think a certain way. And for us in the consulting world, we love that. So I'm always looking to hire engineers all the time.
Wait, I have a follow-up to that. Like, so you said you like people like think a similar, like a certain way. Can you elaborate on that more?
Yeah, well, I mean, Anan and Luz, I will pass it over to y'all to talk about, and then I can add some color to it.
I think
Yeah.
like as an engineer, you like learn how to solve problems, like how to go about like taking what you know, putting it together, and how can you form a solution. And I've used that a lot, like mostly when I've done field work. Like if you're out of materials, then like what can you use while you're there to, you know, rig something up to, you know, take the measurement that you're trying to measure. So like just being resourceful too with information that you have, and learning where else you can get some information to kind of tackle a problem.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I can add to that. It's you know, even with Chemi, the degree itself is pretty technical, right, when you're going through it. But like my first job was working out in the plants. That's more of a, you know, the process is so specific. Whatever chemical you're making is so specific. That's not something they can teach you in school. So a lot of times, you know, my job was literally, hey, this is an issue, figure out how to fix it, and kind of figuring out, you know, how to solve the problem without, and it wasn't like math or anything like that. It was just literally going and finding the guy that knows how to fix it or whatever. And same with me being in kind of the business, you know, the commercial sector. It's the same way. You know, whether it's an issue with the customer or whatever, it's kind of just figuring out how to solve the problem. So I would say, like, even now today, I don't really use much from my degree per se, like in terms of like technical things, but it did teach me how to find the right answers. That's something that I'll always use.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think like
and
most engineering jobs, like you're gonna learn how to do that, you know, specific type of problem or whatever on the job. But it's about the skill set, and can you apply that skill set, you know, off the bat.
Yeah, and I think from my side, when I say, yeah, very much agree, Anan and Luz, on what you're saying. On our side, we're obviously looking for people that are strong in their quant, right? And I think engineering, because of all the quant that you did in undergrad, it just comes a little bit more fluid than somebody who wasn't an engineer. But we want both, right? Like this is why we pride ourselves on being really good at what we do, because we take all brains and mold them to have the best answer. The second thing I would say is a lot of self-exploring to find an answer, Anan, which is what you were saying, right? And that's very important for us in consulting, because our clients will come with like big questions, like how do I enter like a salmon company, right? That's based out of Japan, and they're like, how do I enter Argentina? And our answer has to be both quantitative and qualitative, right? It's like, okay, what does the data say? What does the market look like? Who are your competitors? How much do you price salmon for? And then a little bit more of like the cultural aspect, right? Like, here's what you should think about when you're going into Argentina. Here's how they eat. Here's when they eat. Here's how they treat salmon, right? Like, is it going to be on the higher price? Is it going to be in the middle price? So all those things I think it's a combination of all the skill sets that you've learned as an engineer, and that you can think logically, like step 1, step 2, step 3 to get to the answer. Ariana's asking, in your experience, does the mindset you develop from engineering make collaboration
Yeah.
easier or more fruitful?
That one is that's a really good question, and my opinion on that is it depends on your approach. You know, one of the things we mentioned, like in your initial challenges in college, it's really easy to kind of just do things yourself initially and kind of just try to figure it out yourself. But it takes a lot when you're a freshman to really like go out of your comfort zone and find that study group, find those people that you can connect with. And that is a skill that if you develop that early on and carry that through your college career, coupled with engineering, that can, you know, that's, in my opinion, makes you a really good collaborator. But, you know, really kind of emphasis on, you know, making sure you put yourself out of your comfort zone that first year and really look for people like that and try to find that family in a way.
And I would say that it's important to be able to do both, because I do a lot of collaborations at my job now where we, you know, have a project together. Like a couple of us, like we'll work on different aspects of that project and then come together to kind of piece it and see the whole picture. But, you know, obviously there's that part where like you are on your own figuring out what, you know, what the resources are needed to get to an answer. So it's important to be able to do both. But like Adnan said, like having worked together with others in college with like study groups and stuff, yeah, I think that definitely made it easy to like then kind of apply that mindset into the job force and like be ready and very willing to learn from others and like be open to collaborations.
Yeah, and one thing, you know, the internship piece, even as a freshman, I would encourage all of you to go to the career fair. And yeah, you might not get an internship. You might, who knows? But just putting yourself out there is really impactful, and you'll be able to see how to carry yourself. And if you do get the internship your freshman or sophomore year, that really helped me as well, you know, in terms of collaboration. And it really helped me, you know, kind of see, okay, this is what my career would look like if I go finish my degree. This is the type of job I would be doing.
Was it ever hard for any of you to put yourself out there, especially when it comes to internships? And do you have any advice for putting yourself out there?
Yes, it is very difficult. I actually remember the first time I went to office hours, I was like waiting outside the professor's hours, just trying to like build up the courage to go. And then a friend of mine came by and we sort of like made a pact to go in there together, because going with a friend makes it much less scary. So that was my approach to finally building up the courage to do that. So I mentioned in the chat that one of my regrets was not actually doing an internship, and it was very difficult then when, you know, my senior year was, then I was going around to like apply for jobs, because, you know, most of my other peers did have internship experience. And I mean, I had done research over the summers and study abroad, which was something, but like it wasn't, because I was applying for a job and I didn't have that direct type of experience, it made it a little bit more difficult. And yeah, you just have to like keep trying at it and like kind of mend like the experience you do have and showcase what the skills that you got from those experience that would then translate to, you know, what it would be like to work in the job force.
Yeah, I think as far as for networking, for me, like going to like conferences throughout like my like undergraduate experience was the biggest thing, because like not only could I connect with people who were like actually in my industry and like had like shared kind of like the same interests that like I did, I also just like met people who were the same like age as me and who were kind of going through it like with me. So in that way, it felt a little less lonely. It felt a little less awkward, because it was just like talking to someone who's kind of going through it through this like the same like experience, whether it's like looking for an internship or a full-time job. It was really helpful to kind of like connect with like those people, and I think it helped me tell like my story a little bit more, because it's like you kind of have to give you like your elevator pitch in a lot of ways, like at any like interview that like you have, whether it's like an initial one or if you're meeting with like anyone. And and getting to like connect with those people like at those conferences was really helpful because it built my network a little bit more. I found out about like job and internship opportunities a lot easier that way.
Yeah, in my industry, we have something called coffee chats. And coffee chats are life. And we spend a lot of our time doing coffee chats. So coffee chats is basically you meet somebody, you send them an email after you meet them and you say like, Luz, it was great to meet you. I would love to have 15 minutes of your time to just pick your brain and hear about what you do. And so then some people say yes, some people say no, some people send you to somebody else. And that's how you learn a little bit about what they do in their daily jobs. But yeah, coffee chats are really important, and people come prepared with questions, right? So like people wouldn't show up and just say, hi, I'm here to talk. People are like, here are my questions, here's what I'm trying to get out of. And then you follow up with a thank you card. That's a huge one. Like all of us are really busy on the other side who do this, right? And always being super thankful for people giving you 15, 20 minutes of their time goes a long way.
Going off of that a little bit and answering one of the other questions about resources is, I think one of the most valuable resources that I didn't really, figure out until after I graduated is, how easy it is to reach out to other people like that are already in whatever career field you're interested in doing. Because you can, just like reach out to people like on LinkedIn and be like, hey, like I want to learn more about, this career, like what is it actually like, day to day. That way you are getting that like, direct answer of what it would be like if you were there. Because I think as you're going through like classes, like you get this like idea of what you think a job in, say chemical engineering is going to be, but then you actually go and do it and it's like completely different. So being very willing to reach out to people, I think it's super helpful. It, builds your networking, which helps like then, when you become a senior, you're like getting ready to apply for jobs. You already have that personal connection with some people that, just had these like, coffee chats with that you just wanted to learn more about what the job was like. So I highly recommend just reaching out to people. And a lot of people are very willing to, share about the experience. And, sometimes you won't hear back, but a lot of times you do.
Yeah, and on the question on internships, I think you should start freshman year, right? At least at minimum, just going to the career fair, because then when it's your actual time, like most sophomores are the ones that kind of really get internships. But if you go as a freshman, you already know how it's like, how the career fair is like, how stressful it can get. So it won't be your first time doing it. But I've known in college, and I've seen several freshmen get internships, at least when I was in school. So it's not impossible to get one as a freshman. I would say the sooner the better.
And a lot of times it's the same people that recruit year after year. So if you go and meet them as a freshman, they might remember you, come sophomore or junior year, and they'll be like, oh yeah, like this person has, stopped by every year. Obviously they're interested in my company. Let's give them a chance.
Yeah. And I think if you make it to kind of like that interview process where like you've like applied and they reach out for you to an interview and like you don't like make it that time around, that's still a lot of really good practice to like get comfortable with interviewing. Like, I mean, even like now, like I have like a full-time job and I still like interview like whenever I can, just because it just helps me like practice. It kind of keeps me on my toes, and like you really never know whenever that next like opportunity is like at your doorstep.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Alejandro, maybe we can start with you because you entered a career in DEI, and oftentimes they require you to have X amount of years of DEI before jumping into DEI. So Sarah wants to know, how did you deal with jobs that require you to have a certain amount of years of experiences before or when you first came out of college?
Yeah, I think initially I just allowed myself to be frustrated about it just because I graduated at the height of the pandemic, whenever like it just started in 2020. So like the job market was like not great, and like it just like wasn't like the right time to like be looking for a job, especially for new grads. So it was definitely like challenging to kind of like find myself on my feet. And even after just like 1 year of like professional experience, it was still difficult to kind of like secure like a full-time opportunity that I was like looking for. At the time, I was working as a fellow, so it was kind of like an internship, but kind of like a full-time job. So it's kind of like in that like in between like period. But as far as like those like jobs, I would still just be bold to like apply to them, because like I've seen some of my friends who have like no like experience in like cybersecurity or like tech, and they used to be like teachers, or they used to work at a nonprofit, and now that like they work as like instructional designers or like software engineers or like something that like you wouldn't even like think of. So I would just be bold to like still like apply to like those like however many years of experience, just because you really never know. It's really about like matching like skill sets at the end of the day. Like what a recruiter is looking at is that, does like your past like experiences match up with like, are you do you meet like the minimum qualifications of doing that? And I think as long as you meet those minimum qualifications, whether it's like project management or like marketing or like internal communications or anything like that, like that's what that's like related to, I would still kind of like leverage like those skills. And anytime like you're applying to like a job that like requires those years of experiences, what I like to do is kind of put a side by side of like, let me look at the job description and then let me look at my current resume. Where do my skills kind of match up? Or can I take some time to kind of think about like, oh, I worked on this specific project and this is directly related to what this like job description is looking for. So in a lot of ways, it kind of like those like job like requirements is a way to challenge you and to find like, oh, you actually do have those skill sets. You just have to put it in a way that like frames it that kind of like meets like those needs that they're looking for.
And one thing I would add to that is that it's helpful to like use, you know, if they have like a job posting, like looking at what those keywords are and then making sure you have those same keywords in your resume where they apply. Because a lot of times they're just looking for those things. And if they pop on there, like, you know, you move on to like the next step or whatever, regardless of how many years of experience you might have.
Yeah, and I can kind of give like a personal example too. Like a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn for a managerial role, which was a senior level role at an education technology company. And I only have 1 year of experience working in D&I, but it's much, and I think like that, like going through that interview process helped me really understand that it's not really like, sure, like years of experience are definitely like helpful and like don't want to like discredit that, but I think like once like you rack up like a certain amount of projects and experiences from like 1 or like 2 experiences, whether it's like an internship or something like that really like showcases like, oh, I'm capable of like doing this like job and doing it well.
So there's a really interesting question in the chat about failure. So how do you all handle failure, rejection? And maybe you can begin with like an example of when you failed, how you felt, and then how you dealt with it. And Adnan, I'm looking at you, but you might want more time to think. Does anybody want to start?
I guess I'll give my little example. I like using that one sometimes. You know, we all remember when we first get on the freeway, when you first learn how to drive, it's like terrifying, especially in Houston. You know, our drivers are crazy. But after a while, you get on, you don't even realize you're on the freeway or you're going 80 miles per hour. So when I was younger in school, you know, the first time I got my internship, I actually had, I think, gotten like 10 rejections that semester from various interviews or whatever. And I kind of kept on saying, hey, look, you know, all I can do is keep moving forward, keep pushing forward, and just accept that that job wasn't for me. Try not to think too much about why I didn't get the job. Just keep doing what I'm doing, while also getting constructive feedback, right, from the folks on why maybe I wasn't selected or why something happened in such a way. So I think for me, especially, you know, when I was younger and even now, is just accepting the failure, but also understanding, you know, what led to that, and moving forward from it, without letting kind of intrusive thoughts or things like that maybe come into play, and make me, you know, even more anxious or something like, something along those lines, normalizing it.
I think it's also important to understand that like these rejections don't like tell you like who you are. Like they don't like define like who you are. They don't define like your capabilities. I did a congressional internship my first semester of my senior year, and I had applied to that congressional internship year over year. I think I applied like 4 times, kept getting rejected, kept getting rejected. But I was like persistent because I knew like I wanted like that DC experience. I knew that kind of rounded out like my experience as like a political science major. And like I think it like would help me understand like what I wanted to do like moving forward. And just like being like very persistent, like recognizing that it's not always like going to work out the way that you envision, but it's gonna work out like at the end of the day. And it sounds like very cheesy, but like everything really does like happen for a reason. I like some of my friends like use this like term of like it's not like rejection, it's like redirection, and it's like you're being redirected onto the path or like journey where you're really like meant to be in. It's going to like end up in the way that not necessarily like how you had like envisioned, but it's going to be the way that like works best for you, and that meets your needs.
Yeah, one thing I'll add is that it's totally valid to, feel sad and like, rejection sucks, and like take some time to cry it out. And, at the end of the day, what matters is that you pick yourself up and then, keep going at it.
Mm-hmm. Just be very honest like with your feelings too, because it's like it's important to like sit like in like the frustration of just like, why isn't this happening? Like I wanted this so bad, like I worked so hard for this, and like still like not receiving the outcome, because it's like a part of like being human, and like it's okay to feel that way, but don't allow that to characterize like your capabilities and like what you can do, because just because this like certain organization might not necessarily see like the skills or talent that like you offer doesn't mean that like you're not talented or like you don't like have skills. Like there's much more than you than like this decision.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is, let us be clear, I still fail all the time, right? Like as somebody that graduated from college, went to Harvard, was a Paul and Daisy Soros, have an awesome job, like I still fail, and a lot. And it happens probably more than I would like to admit. And yes, there are days that like I totally want to sit and cry, and that I do cry, right? And like Lou said, I cry it out for sometimes a day, and then I get up and then I do it all over again. And then I'm reminded that it is okay because I'm still putting myself out there. I'm still taking risks, right? Like I don't live in this comfort zone where everything is cookie cutter and I know exactly what the outcomes are every time, right? And so to me, at least, the failure is a sign of I'm growing, I'm doing it, right? And I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with the failures, because for as many failures as I have, I also have that many wins, right? And I wouldn't have those wins if I wouldn't be trying. Okay, so the last question that we have in here is, what was your favorite college or career memory? And I think we can finish with that one.
Damn, favorite. A lot of pressure.
Yeah, I have like multiple.
Yeah.
I guess I can go first. So when I was interning in DC, before I left, I think it was like around like my dad's birthday, and my mom and I, we like love like surprises, and like our love languages are like acts of service in a lot of ways. So for his birthday, we got him a plane ticket to come visit me in DC and see that like, oh, like your son like works at the US House of Representatives for like our congresswoman. And he like lost his mind. Like he had like, I think like especially just because like he's like still undocumented, and like even though like I'm not like anymore, I like have like DACA, which is like helpful. It was really like mind-boggling to see that like we like immigrated here like 15 like years ago, and now we're at like the nation's capital, and like his son is like working for a congresswoman, a very like high profile like congresswoman, and gets to kind of like have this experience of like him like walking like the halls, like seeing like Nancy Pelosi's office, seeing like all like the major like national monuments, and just like being like in that space that where it really quite literally decides like his like future in this country, and determines like his existence like in a lot of ways, was a very like rewarding like experience for me, because it was almost like I get to give back like what you like gave me like in my life, like these opportunities, the like power to like really believe in myself and like to like choose like my own future, and like not like be pressured to kind of like do like something that like I was supposed to do, something just be somewhere where I want to be. And that was like really special to me.
I think for me, one of my favorite things about being in college was being able to take advantage of the resources that my college had. So while I was in college, I did Engineers Without Borders, and all of those trips going to like, I went to El Salvador, Nicaragua to, implement engineering designs. All of those were paid by Rice because I had zero money. So it was really cool to be able to have those kind of experiences, not on my dime, and being able to like mesh like engineering with like real world application, and like really being able to meet the people that we were helping out in these rural communities. So that was a pretty special thing for my college time.
Yeah, mine is kind of similar to Alejandro's. When I first got my first job out of school, it was just as simple as, depending on the company you work for, you get like your business cards, and just having a business card and handing it to my dad, and that was like the biggest thing for him. Like, oh, my son has a business card and he has a title, and he's an engineer or whatever. But just seeing like the proud feeling that your parents get, especially first gen, to me there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, I can wrap us up. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so we are now at 6 o'clock, so we are unfortunately out of time, but I would like to thank you so much from Howard College for coming and speaking to us today. You guys did amazing and said everything so beautifully about college and careers. And thank you for answering everyone's questions. Oh, and before we go, I wanted to ask if everyone would be willing to take a screenshot, like a selfie together. If anyone could turn on their cameras so we could take a photo. Oh, Adnan, if you wouldn't mind, stopping your sharing, so we can see everyone.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries. Yay! Thank you again, everyone, for coming. And after this meeting is over, just remember there will be a feedback form sent to you. So really quickly, all right. Everyone's cameras on. Okay, I took one, but I'll take another just in case. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, everyone. And do you have any last words, Normal?
Good luck. We're all really proud of you. You're gonna go do amazing things. Go change the world. Go do something good. You got it.
And reminder, everyone, mentorship hours. If you would like to participate, there'll be mentors from all different colleges all over the US. So please take advantage while you still can. And have fun at other panels, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.